That wasn't marathon pace effort, that's for sure. But I don't want to give up on this session. Got my recovery boots. It's the most mileage I've ever done in a week. It is windy. I'm cooked. My name is Ben, and I'm training to run a sub-3 marathon in May this year. Got a little bit of work to do. This channel is about my journey to get there. So if you're looking for an honest record of the wins and losses along the way, you're in the right place. Welcome, thanks for being here. In my last video, I asked if high mileage was a sustainable way for me to train. Now, thanks to the magic of video editing, that was actually 2 weeks ago. And now I have an answer. That answer is no. At least not the way I was doing it. Not increasing mileage PRs week on week. Just too much. Now, before we get into that, let me just do a quick recap of the remainder of last week. When I left you, I had just finished a 34-kilometer run on the treadmill. It was feeling great. 34K. That went really well. Let's run over the rest of the week. On Tuesday, I had an easy 5K, which is actually pretty significant because Tuesday is normally a full rest day for me. So fitting in a 5K instead of rest, let's see if that could be a factor later. Wednesday was my first strength session of the week, plus another 16K easy. Thursday, I did my sneaky double run again, so 6K easy in the morning, and then I had my run club in the evening. The workout for that was kind of an on and off session. We would do the long part of a track loop, so like 150 meters fast, and then we would sort of jog the corners, so 50 meters off, 150 meters on, 50 meters off, repeat for a little while. Total there was about 18K for the day. Friday was the second strength session of the week, plus an easy run, so that came out to 17K. Saturday was my sub-threshold session for the week. Now, I've been doing these longer repetition ones as 3 by 12 minutes, but this week I decided to change it to 4 by 10 minutes, trying to bump up the overall volume of sub-threshold work. And for the whole session, that was 17K. And then on Sunday, it was an easy run, but I could tell I was starting to feel a bit tired, and I was already pretty easily getting to my mileage PR, so I capped that at 13K. And for the whole week, that, with little bits and bobs here and there, added up to 122 kilometers, my highest mileage week ever, beating the previous record from the week prior. And that brings us to this week. And before I get into it, I need to remind myself why I'm making these videos, because honestly, this is a little bit vulnerable. And if watching this helps you, then I'm glad you found this video. Because I could just not talk about this next part. I could have skipped this part of the vlog. I could have kept things, happy and upbeat and only show my wins along the way. But this vlog is supposed to be a record of my journey in this training block, and that includes the parts that don't go so well. And I did feel like things were going well. They certainly seemed to be going well. And when things went sideways for me on Monday of this week, it kind of shook me a bit. And it's taken me a little while to come to terms with where I'm at. Without further ado, let's look at Monday's long run of this week. It's long run day. Hey, good morning. It is Monday, March 9th. Out for my long run. It is windy. Do have the wind muff on today. I hope you can hear anything, so I don't have to do a voiceover again. So it's Monday. I think it's March 9th. Might be March 10th, but I think March 10th is tomorrow, so happy Mario Day to those who observe. I'm really just trying to find somewhere where the wind is not absolutely brutal. All right, got a long run today. Gonna try to fit in some marathon pace efforts, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not feeling super confident, to be honest. I'm coming off the back of a 122 kilometer week. It's the most mileage I've ever done in a week. It breaks my previous record of 120 kilometers, which I set the week before. So 2 mileage records in a row, no rest days, for a little while now, and I'm starting to feel it. I know I was super confident last week, and I gotta say, feeling pretty good. And I said, hey, maybe it's because I had a down week. And yeah, down week leading into a high mileage week, much different than a high mileage week leading into a high mileage week. Regardless, I'm outside, wearing shorts, dodging puddles, got my Endorphin Pro 3s on. I'm gonna try to do 4 by 5K at marathon pace, and we'll see how that goes. Just finishing my warm up now. Gonna do another 1.5 kilometers of warming up. Gonna have a gel, then we'll get into the reps. It's weird calling them reps when they're 5K. Don't plan on filming stuff during the reps. Just get it done, and I'll have a 1K recovery in between. Maybe a float recovery, maybe a standing rest. We'll see how I do. I'm gonna try taking a gel in between each rep. So the plan is to check in after 5K, and I'll let you know how it's going. All right, see you in a bit. First rep done. I finished it about a minute ago. I had to try to get out of the wind at least a little bit. I kind of did it, but that wasn't marathon pace effort, that's for sure. So now I got to think about what to do for the rest of them. I don't think it's worth trying to put in that level of effort 3 more times. I really don't think I can hold the pace, so it's going to drop off and my form is going to be bad, and I don't think it'll be as useful. But I don't want to give up on this session, so I think I'll adapt. I'm going to do 2K recovery in between, give myself a fighting chance, and maybe I can find somewhere a little bit less hilly, and maybe somewhere that's a bit more east-west, so I'm not running headwind, tailwind repeatedly. So I'm going to try that. I got to get running again here. Still going to do a long run today. Still going to try to fit in more repeats at, I don't know, marathon pace or marathon pace effort. But at least I did one. That was useful. All right, catch you in a bit. It is windy. I'm cooked. I'm proud they put in the effort on that last 5K, but I don't think it's the best use of me, my body's limited resources, to push this session for the sake of pushing it. So I think 2 reps will do. It's a big effort. I'm gonna finish out this run easy, and I'm not gonna do 32K. Just gonna head home, cut this one a bit short, and take a well-deserved rest day tomorrow. Gonna listen to my body and just absorb some of the mileage that I've been doing. That's the theory, right? You absorb mileage on your recovery days. All right. I don't know if you're gonna hear any of this, but if you don't, it just proves how windy it is. All right, see ya. I'd like to talk a little bit about limits. To me, one of the points of training is to find where your limits are. Now this week, the warning signs were there. Garmin was repeatedly telling me that my HRV was low, especially overnight. It was much lower than it should be, and it had been there for quite a while. I could tell that my sleep scores were not so good, and just like objectively, the amount of time I was sleeping was not so good. The clocks went forward. I lost another hour. I found myself needing a nap in the middle of the day on the weekend. So like the warning signs were there, but maybe you can relate to this. In my head, if I listen to those warning signs and back off right away, then I haven't found where my limit is, not yet. Instead, I feel like I have just rewarded my brain for avoiding discomfort. So my brain learns that if you put up enough of a fight, you can avoid doing hard things. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to give up before I had tried. I don't want my brain thinking it can avoid discomfort if it's just convincing enough. I think this is a balance that we all wrestle with. Obviously, you do not want to push things so far that you injure yourself. If you're out for a prolonged period of time, that's terrible for your training. And I mean, it sucks in general. Obviously, you need to listen to your body. But at the other end of that seesaw is limiting yourself prematurely. In that 4x5K session on Monday, I knew I was capable of doing it. I knew in my head I was capable of doing it. I did a half marathon like a month ago. That was 21 kilometers with no breaks, and I was able to do that. And that was under worse conditions. So I knew my body could do it. At least in general, my body could do that. Now, maybe I was not in the condition to do it on that day, but I wanted to know if that was the case or if it was a lack of effort, if it was my brain just trying to shut me down early. So I pushed really hard. I pushed way harder than marathon effort just to see if I could do it. Now, thankfully, I was cognizant after 2 reps to recognize that this was not the right thing to do, and I pulled the plug. I recognized that logically, it should not feel this hard. I've done this before and recently. It should not feel this hard. And if it shouldn't feel this hard, then something's up. Either I'm underfueled, or I haven't gotten enough sleep, or maybe I'm overtraining, or maybe I'm getting sick. Could be any number of things. But the point is, finishing that session is not going to help any of those factors. Finishing out the long runs, slogging through to finish it, that's not going to help any of this stuff. What I need is rest, recovery, fuel. I don't need more session. So I'm glad that I did the right thing and stopped. Now, looking back at this, you might think, well, it was a stupid idea to even do that session. But I don't know. I think skipping that session would have been premature. Even though it was my limit, I think finding that limit was an important thing to do. Now, finishing that session would have been absolute folly, just a terrible idea. But even though it didn't go well, I still think that was the right thing to do. If you're always under your limit, you're never really going to find it. Now, when I say limit here, I'm talking about the limit of the effectiveness of my training. I'm not talking about my ultimate limit. I probably could have pushed myself into utter exhaustion and finished those reps, and maybe that would have been closer to my true limit, but that's absolutely pointless. There's no point killing yourself in a session. You don't want to race your workouts. Anyway, now it is time for the mindset shift. I need to prevent this wobble from becoming a total wipeout. So I spent the rest of this week really dialing things back, focusing on rest, recovery, and food. But now I need another hand, so bye. All right, got my recovery boots. Time for a little passive recovery. Yeah, take it easy. Overall, I'd say this week of recovery has been going pretty well. It's been a sort of tuck and roll. You got to roll with the punches. You got to recover. I don't want it to be huge peaks and valleys in terms of mileage, but at the same time, I do want to back off enough that I can get back to training in a sustainable way. I don't want to just be, what's a good metaphor here? What's a good analogy? I don't want to be limping through the rest of this training. I do want to be able to train properly, train hard, and that means backing off a bit now. Next week, I think I'd like to talk a bit about my running journey and how I got here. Let me know if that'd be of any interest to you.
My PR here starts with a 3, but it might surprise you that my second ever marathon, that started with a 5. So I've come a long way in about 6 or 7 years now. I do want to keep up doing these training vlogs. I think it is more useful for me to have this record, and hey, maybe it's useful for you to see what it takes to hopefully make that number start with a 2. That is going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week.